In the party venue bathed in flickering candlelight, balloons hung gently from the ceiling, and the caramel cake I'd baked with my own hands still carried a warm, lingering aroma. This was the surprise I'd prepared for my 38th birthday. My name is Liam Cole, and I'm the owner of an independent cafe in Portland, Oregon. For weeks, I'd turned down nearly every order, devoting myself entirely to planning this party, just so I could finally bring together my parents and younger sister and make up for all those years of being apart. But as the clock on the wall struck 7 o'clock, the carefully decorated art space in the old city center remained eerily empty. There were no familiar footsteps, no long-awaited greetings, and my phone lay utterly silent. Clutching a cold glass, I watched the dishes on the table slowly grow colder, my heart feeling as though it had been plunged into ice water. A week later, my silent phone suddenly vibrated. The text message from my father felt like a sharp blade. Your sister Sophia's 35th birthday, Skyline Rotating Restaurant, $3,000 per person. Transfer the money immediately. They completely ignored my birthday, yet boldly demanded a huge sum of money from me. Anger instantly consumed me. I opened my payment app, entered $3, added the note, "Congratulations," then blocked all my family members' numbers. Turning around, I called a furniture repairman and had him replace every single lock in the house. I thought this would bring me relief, but 48 hours later, my life had plunged into utter chaos. If your family treated your heartfelt sincerity as if it were nothing more than discarded trash, how would you choose to respond? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to hear what you have to say. Growing up in the suburbs of Portland, I always felt like an outsider, drifting apart from my family. My father, Ethan Reed, was a project manager at a construction company, and my mother, Olivia Reed, ran a yoga studio. Both of them poured all their energy into my younger sister, Sophia Reed. To this day, I can still remember that when 15-year-old Sophia competed wearing a custom-made ballet dress, I was washing dishes at a corner breakfast spot, saving up for my barista training fees. They hired renowned tutors to coach her, sent her to a summer camp in Italy, and accompanied her every step of the way through each competition. Meanwhile, I taught myself and earned an advanced barista certification, but all I got from my father was a single, curt remark: "Just keep working hard." I gritted my teeth, worked late-night shifts to scrape together enough money to open a small coffee shop. When I finally brought the business license home to share the good news, my mother was excitedly chatting with someone about Sophia's upcoming interview for a PR position at a fashion magazine. I just gave her a perfunctory reply and then hung up the phone. When Sophia started her new job, my parents threw a lavish party at a riverside restaurant with stunning views. But when my coffee shop opened, all I received was a "keep it up" card tucked inside a $20 bill. Her welcome party featured a luxury yacht rental when she bought her first home. My father even helped pick out the furniture and paid the down payment. As for me, I poured all my savings into buying the cafe space, yet my mother only reminded me, "Just don't lose money." At family dinners, the conversation always revolved around her. My mother would proudly boast about how Sophia had made it into management, while I sat quietly in the corner, feeling like a complete stranger. I tried to convince myself, maybe Sophia, fresh out of school, just needed more support. Or maybe it was simply that I was too reserved, not good at asking for attention. No matter how many times I try to ignore it, it still feels like a needle piercing my heart. I'd excitedly call them to tell them that my cafe had been named the coziest little shop by the local food magazine, only for my father to immediately interrupt me and say that Sophia had landed another big brand collaboration. Once, I overheard my mother telling a student at the yoga studio, "My son just runs a little cafe and drifts through life. It's my daughter who really makes something of herself." That remark felt like a thorn, lodged deep in my heart for years. I threw myself into running the cafe with all my might, opening earlier than anyone else every day and staying open until the very last customer left, keeping the little shop impeccably organized. Yet no matter what I did, that heavy sense of being overlooked just wouldn't go away. One summer when I was 16, my father announced he was taking the whole family on a trip to Universal Studios in California. I was so thrilled that I'd already mapped out our entire itinerary half a month in advance. But the day before we were set to leave, they told me the trip was specifically to reward Sophia for winning the dance competition and that I wasn't allowed to come along. I watched them pack their bags, saw the car drive away from our home, and then quietly picked up my tools and headed over to the neighbor's house to mow their lawn and earn some pocket money. That memory feels like a scar. Every time I glance at Sophia's photos from Universal Studios and our family album, none of them ever include me. I feel a dull ache in my chest. By the time I was nearing 30, my cafe had finally gotten on track and become a locally well-known spot that people love to check in at. Every night, I stayed up late experimenting with new coffee blends and desserts, slowly saving up enough money to buy a small house in the suburbs. One day, as I drove past Sophia's upscale apartment downtown, where my father had helped her pay the down payment and even gifted her a car for daily use, while I'd relied entirely on my own hard work and perseverance to buy my own home and open my own shop, never asking for a single penny from my family, I called my mother on the day I received the property deed, eager to share my joy with her. "Oh, it's pretty good," she said casually, then launched into a detailed description of Sophia's new office. Apparently, it was a corner office in one of the city center's most luxurious office buildings. I hung up the phone, stared at the empty living room, and told myself, from now on, I'll rely solely on myself. Family gatherings had become nothing but an ordeal for me. Sophia's engagement party was lavishly extravagant, complete with a professional wedding planner and a full band. 3 days ahead of time, I'd gone to help with the decorations, but not a single person even bothered to say thank you. The day I earned my advanced pastry chef certification, there wasn't a single word of celebration at home, yet somehow my father remembered every one of Sophia's paydays and would even take the initiative to ask her if she needed some cash to tide her over. One year, my father actually forgot my birthday, but the very next day, he called me up and asked me to help Sophia pay off her credit card bill. "She just got a new job and is under a lot of stress. You really ought to give her a hand," he said, sounding perfectly justified. In the end, I still sent a check, feeling both angry and deeply hurt. Yet, deep down, I still held onto a sliver of hope. Maybe someday, they'd finally recognize all my efforts. But a few years ago, Christmas dinner shattered that hope once and for all. I'd started preparing a week in advance, roasting a turkey, baking gingerbread men, and even making pumpkin pie specifically to match my mother's favorite recipe, all in anticipation of a warm, cozy family gathering. Sophia arrived late, wearing an expensive designer down jacket. As soon as she walked in, she couldn't stop bragging about her newly received year-end bonus and how she was planning to jet off to the Maldives for vacation. My parents surrounded her, peppering her with questions, completely ignoring the pumpkin pie I'd lovingly prepared and leaving it sitting untouched on the counter. No one even took a single bite. I could no longer bear it. I left early, heading home. On the drive back, tears finally spilled over. It was then that I realized, no matter how much I gave, no matter how hard I tried, I'd never be their top priority. But still, I couldn't bring myself to give up. A faint glimmer of hope lingered in my heart. Maybe they'd just temporarily overlooked me. Someday, they'd come to their senses. This stubborn attachment felt like a rope, tightly binding me to this cold, indifferent family, causing me untold pain yet leaving me utterly unable to break free. Several years later, I still couldn't let go. I wanted to try one more time, to bridge the chasm between myself and my family. I told myself that maybe I hadn't been assertive enough, or perhaps they simply didn't understand what my life was really like. So, 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, I made one last-ditch effort. I closed down the cafe and spent 2 whole days preparing an elaborate dinner. I even took the trouble to send Sophia a message, asking if she'd like to bring along some drinks she loved. "I don't have time. I'm going shopping with friends." Her reply was brief and icy. I called my mother to confirm the dinner time, but she told me they were heading over to Sophia's apartment for the holiday instead. She said Sophia had booked a high-end Thanksgiving feast. Apparently, it was tastier than anything we could ever make at home. Sitting at a dining table laden with dishes, I watched the food slowly grow cold, my heart feeling utterly barren. I didn't cry. Instead, I just felt immeasurably exhausted. It had finally dawned on me. In this home, I'd always been the one who was superfluous. Several months ago, I'd planned a coffee and books themed event, inviting local writers and coffee enthusiasts, and even prepared free little treats for the children. As I watched the lively scene unfold at the event, hearing everyone rave about my coffee and the beautiful decorations, I once again felt a flicker of hope, a hope that maybe my parents and Sophia would be proud of me. I sent out invitations to them, and even made a special phone call to my father, explaining in detail how meaningful this event was to me. "Got it," he said casually, his tone flat and devoid of any emotion. On the day of the event, I stood at the cafe's entrance, repeatedly glancing toward the intersection, eagerly waiting to catch a glimpse of their figures. But even by the end of the event, they still hadn't shown up. Sophia later sent a text message saying only, "I've got an urgent job to do." My parents didn't reply at all. That evening, I sat in an empty cafe, staring at the event photos hanging on the wall, and for the first time, I began to wonder, was it really true that I wasn't good enough, not worthy of even a second glance from them? The next day, I made an appointment to meet my friend Ethan White at the independent bookstore on the corner. Ethan is a freelance photographer and one of the few people who truly understood me. I hadn't planned to talk about all this stuff, but as soon as I started, all my frustrations and unspoken grievances came pouring out. The Thanksgiving dinner table left empty, the themed events that no one cared about, the years of being overlooked and ignored. Ethan listened quietly, his book never once opened, his eyes filled with deep sympathy. When I finished speaking, he looked at me earnestly and said, "Liam, you've already done so much. Your cafe has warmed so many people's hearts, and everyone can see your hard work and talent, except them. You don't need their approval to prove your worth. Stop sacrificing yourself for people who aren't worth it. You deserve to live for yourself once." Ethan's words were like a beam of light, illuminating the darkness within me. For the first time, I realized I'm not alone after all. My efforts have truly mattered. It was in that very moment that I decided to throw a birthday party, a party just for me, to celebrate all these years of perseverance and the challenges I've faced. I wanted to invite those who genuinely care about me to rediscover my own happiness amid music and laughter. Yet deep down, a tiny glimmer of hope lingered. Maybe, just maybe, this time they'd come. Maybe they'd finally see all my efforts and truly accept me for who I am. Clinging to this faint hope, I began planning the party, and at the same time, I prepared myself to let go completely. In the weeks leading up to the birthday party, I poured nearly all my energy into the preparations. I didn't want this party to be just another run-of-the-mill celebration. I wanted it to be a way for me to remind myself, even without them, I can still live a vibrant, fulfilling life. I chose an art space in the Old City District, a place with vintage decor and huge floor-to-ceiling windows that let in warm sunlight. I'd passed by it countless times, and I'd always loved it. The party's theme was set as 1980s retro, my favorite decade, brimming with freedom and vitality. I could already picture it. The melody of Sweet Child O' Mine would start playing, my friends would dance in their retro outfits, and the air would be filled with the sweet aroma of cake and coffee. This would be a moment entirely my own, free from anyone else's expectations. First and foremost, it was about the music. I spent several evenings sifting through all sorts of vintage records and carefully put together a playlist featuring classics by artists like Madonna and Michael Jackson. Ethan gave me a lot of help with this. After all, he's a real fan of retro music. The vibe at the party is crucial, and these songs will definitely get everyone hyped, he said as he sat in my cafe, helping me narrow down the tracks. He even suggested adding some jazz tunes to make the atmosphere even cozier. As we listened to the songs and talked about them, we somehow ended up putting together the perfect playlist. Ethan also volunteered to help me decorate the space. He brought along lots of vintage string lights and neon-colored ribbons, and climbed up a ladder to hang them from the ceiling of the art space. With this setup, the retro vibe is just right, he exclaimed, clapping his hands and smiling. With him by my side to help out, I felt much less nervous, and instead, I was filled with excitement for the party. Then came the desserts and drinks. As the cafe owner, I decided to make the party's desserts myself. A retro 3-layer fruit cake decorated with fondant roses and edible glitter, exuding all the opulence of the 1980s. I also prepared macarons and cookies in a variety of flavors, my specialties, no less. For drinks, in addition to classic coffee, I've stocked up on vintage sparkling wines and freshly squeezed juices. I reached out to Emily Davis, a collaborative event planner from the Old Town Art Space, a seasoned small event organizer, who helped me handle many of the finer details. "Your idea is fantastic. The cake will definitely be the highlight of the party," she said excitedly after I described it to her. She even helped me set up the tables, laying down vintage plaid tablecloths and placing tiny retro table lamps on each one as decorative accents. Emily also suggested that I rent a set of professional audio equipment to make sure the music sounds even better, she said, giving me a pat on the shoulder. "This is your very own party. Make it absolutely perfect." Next came the guest list. I created the invitations on my computer, and as I typed in the names of my father, Ethan Reed, my mother, Olivia Reed, and my little sister, Sophia Reed, my fingers couldn't help but tremble. Deep down, I still held onto a sliver of hope that they'd come, that they'd see how seriously I'd prepared for this special day. I sent them physical invitation cards printed with vintage designs, and I even made sure to send a text message as a gentle reminder. "There's a party on my birthday, and I'd love for you to come," was all I wrote in my message to Sophia. Then I called my mom, trying my best to keep my voice calm. "Mom, I'm throwing a little party for my birthday at the art space in the old town. I'd really love for you and Dad to be there." She said vaguely, "We'll see how things turn out," and then hurriedly hung up the phone. I called my father again, but he didn't answer. So I left a voicemail message, my tone brimming with anticipation. Besides my family, I also invited some regulars from the cafe, suppliers I'd worked with in the past, and several friends who genuinely cared about me, like Ethan and Wendy Clark, who runs a floral studio. In the end, our guest list totaled 50 people, all individuals who usually took the initiative to show concern for me and acknowledge my efforts. Every single detail of the party was meticulously planned and refined. I rented a vintage photo booth and prepared props like oversized sunglasses, feathered wigs, and retro dresses, so everyone could snap plenty of memorable photos. I even invited a friend's band, musicians who specialize in playing retro songs, to perform live at the party. As for my own outfit, I carefully selected a vintage leather jacket, black jeans, and a pair of Dr. Martens boots, a style I rarely wear in everyday life, and one that allowed me to present a completely new image to myself on that special day. Every night, I find myself vividly picturing the party in my mind, friends laughing and chatting, dancing together, and all of us savoring the desserts I've made. Everything feels warm and lively. I want this evening to become the most unforgettable moment of my life, and I'm determined to prove it not only to everyone else but also to myself. I can rely on myself and create happiness all on my own. Yet as my birthday draws nearer, I can't help but feel increasingly anxious. What if my parents and Sophia still don't come? And even if they do show up, what if they're just as cold and distant as ever? I try hard to push these negative thoughts aside and focus entirely on the final preparations. Emily and I have confirmed the placement of the cake, and she even took the time to show me the final rendering of the setup. "Don't worry," she said with a smile. "It's going to be absolutely perfect." Ethan helped me test out the sound system, and when we played Billie Jean, the upbeat melody momentarily made me forget all my worries. I sent reminder texts to my invited friends, using a tone that was both casual and enthusiastic. I told myself that no matter whether my family showed up or not, as long as these genuine friends were there for me, the party would still be meaningful. Yet deep down, I still longed for my family's approval, longed for them to truly step into my life. On my birthday, the art space in the old town was decorated with a vibrant retro vibe reminiscent of the 1980s. Neon-colored streamers sparkled under the glow of colorful lights. The band was tuning their instruments, and the air was filled with the aroma of the cake I'd baked myself. The 3-layer fruit cake sat proudly in the center of the table, its fondant roses and glittery powder shimmering brilliantly under the lights. Wearing the vintage leather jacket I'd prepared, I stood by the door, repeatedly glancing toward the intersection, eagerly awaiting the familiar figures to appear. I'd imagined this scene countless times. My family and friends singing happy birthday together, us cutting the cake side by side, and chatting and laughing together. As the clock slowly ticked past 7 o'clock, the art space was still empty except for the band members and a few friends who'd arrived early to help out. I pulled out my phone and checked it repeatedly. No message from my father, no news from my mother. Even the reminder I'd sent Sophia 2 days ago had elicited only a single "okay" emoji in reply. A sharp pang shot through my heart, yet I forced myself to put on a cheerful smile as guests began arriving one by one. My friend Wendy Clark showed up carrying floral arrangements she'd made herself, and she helped me place bouquets in every corner of the space. "This setup is so full of feeling, Liam. You've really put your heart into it," she said, admiring the decor. Several regular customers from the cafe also came by, bringing little gifts and enthusiastically praising how delicious my cakes were. But despite all this warmth, the absence of my family still weighed heavily on me. Wendy and her friends danced with me for a few songs and chatted for a while before gradually leaving, each one having other commitments to attend to. By 8 o'clock, the art space was almost empty. Only I and the band members were left. Standing in the middle of the deserted venue, I stared at the twinkling colored lights and the cake that hadn't been touched much at all, feeling as though my heart had been hollowed out. The lively music sounded especially jarring right now. Every beat seemed to remind me, once again, I'd been abandoned by my family. I'd poured so much time, energy, and money into this party, but they hadn't even bothered to send a single greeting or a text message. I began to wonder, in this home, do I even count as a real family member? Will I never, ever get their genuine attention? Event planner Emily Davis noticed my dejection. She told the band to take a break, then walked over to me, holding a cup of hot cocoa. "Liam, don't be sad," she said softly, handing me the hot cocoa. I took the cup, and its warm touch brought me a bit of calm. Together, we started cleaning up the venue, silently folding tablecloths and arranging props. Then Emily said to me, "Actually, my relationship with my sister hasn't been great either. She's always been favored by our parents, and I've been neglected from childhood all the way through." She told me that in the past, she'd always tried desperately to please her parents, hoping to earn their approval, but in the end, all she got was even more disappointment. It wasn't until later that I realized, we don't need others' approval to prove our worth. We ourselves are the best version of ourselves. "Look, this party you've planned is amazing. To bring so many people joy, it's already incredible," she said. Emily's words felt like a warm current, gently melting the coldness inside me. As I looked around at the decorations and at the cake I'd made with my own hands, I suddenly realized, the real meaning of this party isn't whether or not my family showed up, it's that I've finally dared to live for myself. Emily's experience also made me realize that I'm not the only one struggling with this. I'm not alone. After we finished cleaning up the venue together, the sense of loss in my heart gradually gave way to a deep sense of determination. Although my family's absence still saddened me, it also brought me crystal clear clarity. I'll no longer let their neglect make me doubt myself, nor will I continue to compromise and enrich myself just to please them. I'm so grateful for Emily's companionship and guidance. Her words have given me tremendous courage. From that day on, I decided once and for all to let go of my obsession with my family and start living for myself. A week after the empty birthday party ended, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text message from my father, Ethan Reed. "Sophia's 35th birthday is next month, and it'll be held at the Skyline Rotating Restaurant. The cost per person is $3,000, covering both food and venue fees. Please transfer the money over right away." I stared at my phone screen, my coffee growing cold in my hand. The Skyline Rotating Restaurant is one of Portland's most luxurious dining establishments, with an exorbitant per-person price tag. They've never once asked me how I'm doing, but yet they expect me to foot the bill for Sophia's extravagant birthday party with absolute confidence. I've poured so much sincerity into them, only to end up with this. My own birthday was completely ignored, while hers demands that I shell out a fortune. A wave of uncontainable anger surged through me. It felt like all those years of effort had been nothing but a joke. Before I could even reply, another text message popped up, this one from Sophia's husband, Noah Wilson. Noah works as a client manager at a financial institution and always strikes this condescending, aloof attitude. Liam. His text was laced with reproach. Don't be so selfish. Sophia's 35th birthday is a big deal. We've got to make it extra special. As the elder brother, you really should be supporting her. If you don't pay up, it'll show that you don't care about family ties, and people will laugh at our family. Selfish? The word felt like a hammer striking my heart. For all these years, I've been carefully nurturing my relationship with them, quietly making sacrifices, but in the end, I've been labeled selfish. I think of how Noah would turn a blind eye to me every time he joined Sophia at family gatherings, how he'd bask in his parents' favor alongside her. My heart fills with disappointment whenever I recall those moments. I composed a long reply, intending to vent all the grievances I'd carried for so many years, but in the end, I deleted it. I know arguing with them is pointless. They've never truly understood me. Then I stumbled upon a post on Sophia's social media platform. She'd posted a photo of herself wearing an expensive designer gown, standing against the backdrop of the Skyline Rotating Restaurant's observation deck. The caption read, "Counting down to my 35th birthday. Ready to celebrate with the people you love most in the most beautiful restaurant. Yet some folks are just so stingy they're unwilling to support even their own family on important occasions. I'm talking about you. It's truly disheartening. Stop being the one who undermines family harmony." These few short sentences felt like knives, piercing straight into my heart. In the comment section, her colleagues and friends chimed in one after another. Some accused me of being immature, while others insisted that family should always support each other. As I stared at those unfamiliar comments, I felt a mix of anger and deep hurt. My throat tightened, yet I couldn't bring myself to cry. Not only did they ignore my feelings, but they also publicly attacked me, placing all the blame squarely on me. Finally, I realized, in their eyes, I'd never been family at all, just a tool they could exploit and criticize at will. I closed down my social media accounts and sat at the bar in a cafe, surrounded by utter silence. I suddenly remembered every little detail from all these years. I worked myself to the bone just to win their approval. Time and again, I swallowed my pride to maintain family ties, and each time I painstakingly prepared to invite them to my events, only to be ignored yet again. Now, not only do they completely disregard everything I've done for them, but they're also demanding huge sums of money from me, and even publicly slandering me. I could no longer hold back. I opened up my payment app, entered $3, typed the 2 words "congratulations" in the note, and hit send. Those $3 weren't a blessing. They were my final farewell to this twisted family dynamic. I'm not their ATM, nor am I someone they can bully at will. After completing the transfer, I took a deep breath, then blocked the numbers of my father, my mother, Sophia, and Noah. As soon as I'd finished all this, my hands were still trembling, but inside, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Afterward, I contacted furniture restorer Jack Thomas and had him replace all the door locks in my home. For years, I'd kept spare keys for them, secretly hoping they'd take the initiative to visit. Now, I've resolved to cut ties completely and start a new life. Once Jack expertly finished replacing the locks and handed me the new keys, he asked if I wanted to start over. I quietly nodded in agreement. The satisfying click of the new locks closing marked the end of all the bitterness and resentment from the past. Back at home, I felt no sadness, only relief. Their betrayal had finally opened my eyes. I now have the career I love, genuine friends, and a cozy little home. That's more than enough. From now on, I'll live solely for myself. 2 days after blocking them, while I was preparing ingredients at the cafe, I heard loud knocking at the door. Standing outside were my furious parents. My father berated me for blocking the family and sending only $3 to Sophia. My mother, her voice sharp with anger, demanded that I immediately pay back $3,000 and apologize, or else she'd make sure I couldn't run my business anymore. Seeing their unreasonable behavior, the last shred of hesitation in my heart vanished. I calmly turned them down, closed the door, and shut out their shouting. Deep within, I felt firm and resolved never to give in again. The next day, my parents actually burst into the cafe, making a ruckus and ignoring the customers inside. They loudly accused me of being unfilial. Just then, my friend Wendy arrived with flowers and immediately stepped in to stop them. Charlotte, the head of the Cultural and Creative Park, also heard about the commotion and came running over, demanding that my parents leave. But they refused to cooperate. So Wendy suggested calling the police, and after I nodded in agreement, she promptly dialed the emergency number. Soon enough, the police arrived. My parents quickly started accusing me of being selfish and unfilial, but I calmly explained the situation, presenting the text messages from my father demanding money, Noah's accusatory texts, and Sophia's defamatory posts. After examining the evidence, the police pointed out that their disruptive behavior in a public space had already disturbed the peace and order and ordered them to leave immediately. Otherwise, they would face legal consequences. Bold the two reluctantly left, and Charlotte helped me calm down the customer. Wendy also stepped forward to ask concernedly about what had happened. After the police finished taking their statement, they reminded me to carefully preserve all evidence and assured me that I could call them again at any time if I were ever harassed again. I expressed my gratitude to them and felt even more confident in my decision, realizing that those who truly care about me will always stand up for me when I need them most. Later, I decided to protect myself legally. I reached out to Benjamin Carter, the lawyer who regularly handles legal matters for my cafe, and submitted evidence including text messages, screenshots of defamatory posts on social media, and the police report itself. I filed a request for a restraining order to prevent my family from approaching or harassing me. Benjamin confirmed that the other party's behavior indeed constituted harassment and promised to prepare the necessary documents as soon as possible. A few days later, I received the restraining order, and a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I finally broke free from control and regained a sense of security. Meanwhile, Sophia's defamatory posts spread throughout the local Portland community, and people began to openly criticize both her and her parents for going too far/bold. Wendy said that customers of the floral studio have been complaining about her selfish double standards. Even my longtime customers have spoken up for me on social media, sharing stories about my sincerity toward others and my involvement in charitable activities. Once the truth spread, everyone felt sympathy for what I'd been through and looked down upon Ethan's family. Ethan's construction company ended its partnership with him, and Olivia's yoga studio saw a sharp drop in business as students started dropping out. They've all fallen into complete turmoil. Ethan's company is facing a broken financial chain. Olivia's studio can no longer cover its expenses. Sophia's reputation has collapsed. Her colleagues are pointing fingers at her. Her boss has issued stern warnings, and even her friends have distanced themselves. The carefully planned 35th birthday party was forced to cancel due to a lack of attendees and insufficient funds. Later, Wendy told me that Sophia posted a negative status update lamenting how cruel the world can be, only to be mercilessly mocked in the comments section and urged to reflect on her own behavior. Seeing all this, I didn't feel any glee. I felt only a quiet sense of relief. After all, these were the consequences they'd chosen for themselves. After escaping the harassment, I fully devoted myself to running the cafe and living my life. Wendy often invited me to her floral studio for tea and chats, while Charlotte organized events at the Cultural and Creative Park, allowing me to meet many like-minded friends. Photographer Ethan also frequently came over to help me take promotional photos and accompany me on photo shoots. These friends, though not related by blood, gave me their sincere care and recognition, enabling me to be completely true to myself without having to compromise in any way. They're truly my family. To commemorate this brand new beginning, Wendy, Ethan, and I teamed up to plan a small picnic in the city's riverside green space. The weather that day was perfect: bright sunshine, a gentle breeze, and a warm, pleasant atmosphere. We spread out a checkered blanket, set up the sweets and coffee I'd made with my own hands, and arranged the fresh flowers Wendy had brought along. Charlotte brought a deck of playing cards, and we played games together. Whoever lost had to perform a little act, and laughter filled the air non-stop. Ethan took out his camera and snapped countless photos, capturing these heartwarming moments. He even started playing the guitar, and we joined in, singing along to the melody. Their voices echoed through the riverside green space. That afternoon, there was no arguing, no lingering grievances, only warmth and joy. As I looked at the friends who'd been so genuinely kind to me, my heart was filled with gratitude. I finally realized that family doesn't necessarily need to be bound by blood ties. The people who are willing to give themselves for you, who are ready to understand you, and who'll stand by your side when you need them, that's who truly counts as family. As the sun began to set, golden light spilled across the river's surface, creating a shimmering reflection. We sat on a blanket, watching the sunset slowly dip below the horizon, chatting away and sharing our dreams and hopes. Suddenly, I felt that all those years of bitterness and pain had been worth it. It was precisely because I'd gone through those difficult times that I'd learned how to love myself, and that I'd come to truly appreciate the people who'd been good to me. I no longer dwell on past hurts, nor do I yearn for recognition that doesn't belong to me. I have a career I'm passionate about, friends who truly care for me, and a stable, happy life. That's more than enough. Thank you for listening to my story. Although this experience was painful, it also helped me grow a lot. I'd like to ask you, have you ever experienced coldness and hurt within your family? Have you ever compromised yourself just to maintain family relationships? How did you break free from that predicament and rediscover yourself? Feel free to share your story and thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If my story resonated with you or inspired you in any way, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me.